Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics FPL. It's Fran here and I'm back with a new video. It's going to be a Game Week 3 wildcard draft. If you guys have been watching the team selection series so far, you know that I'm personally not going for a wildcard. But just speaking to some users on Twitter and Discord, I know some people and maybe even some casual players just haven't liked the look of their team within the first 2 game weeks and haven't been able to get their transfers right and are looking to employ the use of a wildcard so far to get ahead of the curve and make sure that they get all the players that they think that they've been missing and get the players that they don't like out. So what I've done here is I've created a wildcard team that hasn't taken advantage of any price rises whatsoever. It's going to be 100 million in the bank team, so literally just 100 million, no price rises taken advantage of. I will recommend some changes if you actually have additional money in the bank, which I imagine some managers do, especially those who, let's say, took advantage of the Kane to Haaland move in the previous week. But here is a wildcard draft that I would be operating in the near future if I was someone who felt like I didn't like my team or the look of my team by game week 2 and wanted to go for an aggressive early game week 3 wildcard. So if we start with the defense, I really like the pairing of Ward and Ederson. Ward doesn't really need any introduction. We know he's a playing Leicester goalkeeper. Yes, Leicester have looked like a terrible defense, but there's no better option at 4.0. As far as Ederson, what I like about Ederson is he's actually cheaper than someone like Ruben Diaz, who's at 6.0, and that gives you a little bit of money spare to think about. Not only does Ederson play all the games, he's more beneficial to me than Ake and Walker if I could revisit team structure, because I don't even have to think about potential rotation. Ederson really only doesn't play if there's an injury, because we know someone like Zach Steffen plays the FA Cup games at times. So Ederson for me is definitely a lock at this position. I feel like paying a little bit more over the dollar compared to Walker and Ake is worth it for someone who you know will start all the games for City, and that's really the greatest benefit that Ederson has. There is one thing this season where I would say with City, you're seeing players like Diaz and Walker actually get subbed off early, and they're locking in that clean sheet a little bit earlier than Ederson, but I just think that City are able to, and they are that sort of elite of a team defensively, to be able to keep a clean sheet over 90 minutes. I know Diaz and Walker have some slight benefits there, but I can't see the real utility or the big drawback from going into Ederson. As far as the defenders, I think Cancelo and Trent are absolutely template, so there isn't really a need to talk about these two players. They're clearly players who are first on our team sheets because they provide so much value, and they're honestly a little bit too cheap for FPL standards. There's no reason to not have these two players on your team, especially for owners who probably are no longer high on going for Robertson. I imagine you're in that camp, and Trent is the one player that I'd keep between the two of them if I was to remake my team. Cancelo, the same thing here, where we've already seen so many bonus points early on in the season. I just can't see how that train will stop when it comes to Cancelo. And a double City defense is something I wouldn't deny. The reason why I've gone for double City defense realistically is because of the midfield situation, where we're seeing a lot of substitutions for players not named Kevin De Bruyne. Yes, this draft structure might not allow you to get someone like a Foden or Gundogan so easily, just because you probably want to have that triple City player be De Bruyne or Haaland, aka a premium. But I would actually prefer going for the defenders because I just feel like they provide so much more value and get those expected minutes and the clean sheets for you. Whereas you could be basically playing the lottery with someone like Foden, who could get 1 point a week or something like 12. But we saw in a match where he really should have gotten something like 13 or 12 points last week, Pep took that opportunity away from him by taking him off at 45 minutes. You don't have that situation, in my opinion, with Cancelo and Ederson, and that's why I much prefer double City defense. As far as the other options, Cucurella and James are the most interesting. I think James is close to becoming essential. I would actually consider him to be in the same bracket as Cancelo and Trent. Yes, there are games that James does play right centre back, but as we saw in the Spurs game, whenever Chelsea are in a dire situation and need goals, James is the one to push forward back into a right wing back position, and you know he'll benefit from there. Not only that, but when he's playing weaker teams, which is what Chelsea have on their fixture schedule, you know he can attack in great positions, just like when Newcastle was very, very poor last year before their winter transfers, and James had a standout performance. His finishing also sets him apart from a lot of the other fullbacks, and which is why I really love James. As far as Cucurella, he's an option that has risen to the forefront of a lot of managers' minds lately, and I think the only drawback with Cucurella is if someone like Fofana joins the team and provides you with a Chelsea defender or a centre back at 4.5, maybe you can actually save some money from that. But I don't think there's a need to even guess whether Fofana will actually move to Chelsea. It doesn't seem like the Leicester transfer is actually moving along as fast as it should. As far as Cucurella, we do expect him to play a lot of minutes, whether it's left centre-back or left wing-back. I know I spoke about Cucurella's opportunity to play at left centre-back at times when Chilwell is back in the team and playing left wing-back. And I think that just comes down to Tuchel's first press conference talking about Cucurella and his ability to play there. I really feel like Koulibaly is someone who would be moved into the kind of central centre-back position where Thiago Silva now usually operates, and Cucurella would be moved into left centre-back. That's simply how I think Tuchel will line up at times, and we've seen in the past that Thiago Silva is someone who can be rotated just because he has to be managed as well at his age, and potentially Cucurella is preferred because he is a left-footed centre-back, which will be really beneficial to Tuchel's system, especially since in the past we've already seen the left centre-back also push up extremely high, such as Antonio Rudiger in the previous 2 seasons. As far as the midfield, if we move into that now, Andreas and Reed are on our bench. You can actually see that just above my head. But we're actually going to be playing with Martinelli, Salah, and Luis Diaz. This is Martinelli at his full price at 6.3, then getting Salah and Diaz. What I like about Salah and Diaz now is Diaz seems to have the perfect scenario to be in your team. The Darwin sort of red card for 3 game weeks is going to be really beneficial. I really think Luis Diaz is going to get a lot of minutes. Worst case scenario, you could probably downgrade him into someone like a Mount if he's not operating super high. But the fixtures are just on the table for Luis Diaz to really conquer. I think the United game is a perfect example of that, where we're expecting him to get a lot more minutes. If you compare, let's say, Game Week 1 to Game Week 2, especially with the scenarios changing with Darwin, and even Luis Diaz scoring, you can see the minutes have improved. Fabio Carvalho was someone who actually subbed on for Luis Diaz in the first game when he didn't seem like to get things going beyond the second half. Whereas in the second game week, we saw Luis Diaz really dominate that game, even with 10 men, and he got the full 90 minutes, which is the key change, I would say. Even if Jota was to come back into this team, or Firmino was to challenge for some minutes, which Darwin seemingly took away from him last week until the big sort of kerfuffle with Anderson. As far as Salah, he's going to be my preferred pick. I prefer him still over Kevin De Bruyne for now. Yes, Salah did blank the previous week, and Kevin De Bruyne has outscored him temporarily in FPL, but I just can't see Salah really blanking in the next few games. The fixtures on the table are really, really good. I think with Darwin going out, I do actually see it as an opportunity for Salah to do better. We've always seen that when Firmino plays, that Salah seems to get into more interesting positions, and that's personally my point of view as well. I think Salah will be one of the better captaincy picks, especially over Kevin De Bruyne for now, if you were the type of manager who was going for Kane and wanted to rotate between Kane and Haaland. I also think if you're a wildcarding player, you probably don't have that much money in the bank, and you have the opportunity to move into Haaland as opposed to KDB, who's a little bit more expensive at 12.1. And that's sort of how I've structured this team. As a result, as you probably expected, the 2 forwards are going to be Kane and Jesus, and that's simply because this team has been restricted to having 100 million in the bank. If you have a little bit more money to spare, I would strongly consider between Haaland and Kane. I'd probably actually move towards still sticking with Haaland for now, even though Kane did score in the previous game. I just don't see why Haaland would be a bad option. Yes, potentially on paper, Kane is a better captaincy pick in Game Week 3, but for the weeks ahead, especially since the fixtures are so good for Haaland, I just can't see how he wouldn't be a better option than Kane. I would definitely go for Haaland if you had a little bit more money in the bank. As far as Kane, though, he's just as good as an option, I think, when you consider the fact that he is 0.3 away from Haaland. And if you wanted to go with the second premium, I still think Kane is a fantastic option, probably the third best option in the game, or the fourth if you consider, let's say, KDB or Son to be in and above him. I just think Son's minutes are now being challenged by Richarlison, which is a little bit tough, whereas De Bruyne is clearly a focal point of the team. But we have seen, for example, in games such as the West Ham match, that Haaland could be that really dominant player that you would rather have over, let's say, a KDB, who at the same time also did extremely well in the Bournemouth game, by contrast to Haaland. And that's kind of how things are with FPL for now. I really think it makes sense to actually have the forward template options. I think they're potentially better captaincy shouts. I think Kane is more interesting than Son for now. I think the Wolves game is a little bit better on paper. As far as Haaland and De Bruyne, there's not much to really separate from them, other than the fact that Haaland's actually cheaper. Yes, KDB gets some clean sheet points at times. Yes, he also gets bonus points too, and more points for a goal. But I do think things will change, and I do expect Haaland to get goals very consistently. We saw that clean chance where Foden kind of scuffed an opportunity to set up Haaland to score, and that's sort of the chances he'll be getting on a weekly basis. And once he scores as a forward, he'll be getting the bulk of the bonus points, which I think will also kind of hamper, let's say, how he compares or stacks up to someone like KDB. And that's pretty much what it comes down to with this wildcard draft. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys very shortly.